Hey, it's Danielle and I am back with another video. I have these three really cute photos of my daughter that I am going to be scrapbooking today, and I've pulled out some papers to work with. The first paper that I actually pulled was this green sort of wonky checkered pattern. I thought that it went well with my pictures and I really like it. But I also picked these other two papers that I thought, you know, they all went well together and went well with the photo. And that's kind of as far as I've gotten. So let me play with this a little bit and we'll see where we go with it. So now that I have a better idea of what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get my layout put together. So I'm going to line up these three photos all in a row, and I want them all matted on this white paper. So I'm really just lining them all up and using my tape runner to get them adhered to this white paper. Now I'm just using my trimmer to cut off that, the excess paper, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with this trimmer. I really liked this trimmer when I first got it, but it feels like now, I don't know, it just kind of drives me crazy. It doesn't cut even, and I don't know, it kind of drives me crazy, but I think that that's just the deal with trimmers. It seems like nobody can ever find the perfect trimmer, so I think that's just what we have to deal with. But I just made it so that you see just a little tiny bit of that white paper poking out around the photos. And now I'm trying to determine where I want to put this group on my layout. The original idea was to put them towards the top of my paper and then take this green strip and put that on the bottom of my paper. But when I was kind of playing around with the placement of these, I kind of like the way they look on the bottom here. But I really just decided to go ahead and just stick with what my original plan was. So I get a little bit of that green strip glued down, and now I'm going to work on the layers behind my photo. Now I have this flower print paper that I think is really pretty, and I want it to just be kind of like a casual layer behind my photos, so that the edges aren't really even all the way around it. It's just kind of just bits and pieces of that poking out behind my photo. I really like those colors. And then I took the love from that pink paper and cut it out, and then I have this big tag, and I know I want to use both of these, but I just don't know exactly where I want to put them yet. So another option that I kind of had available to me were these Amy Tangerine foam words, and there's also a word that says love in this pack too, but it's black, and I kind of thought that that might look good on the layout as well, which I really do like it. I think I like it a little bit better than the one I cut out, especially when I put it down there on the bottom of my layout. But I've already cut this one out and it kind of goes with everything else, so I decided to just go ahead and use it. And then I tucked this tag behind my photos, and I really liked that placement. I liked how a little bit of it hung out from the bottom of my photos, and then also you saw a bit of it on the top as well. I really like the way that looks, so I decided to go ahead and get that in place. And then since that's where I'm putting my tag, I thought that the word love looked good, on the bottom of my photos there. I think everything just kind of fell into place. So now I'm going to put this doily on my layout, and I'm going to take most of it and tuck it underneath the lower right hand corner of the layout, and then I take that other half of the doily and I tuck it in on the upper left hand corner of that little group of photos. But I don't have as much of it sticking out, and I like to do that. I like to have just use repetitive elements on my layout, but I like how you see much more of it on the lower right hand corner, and then just a little peek of it on the other side. Now this pink paper, I really like the look of those brush strokes that are on that pink paper, so I want to use those in my layout. I'm just going to take a strip of this and have it use it as like just a small layer behind my photos, and then I'm going to take this other strip that I've cut off and stick it down on the bottom with that green strip. I just kind of like how that pink looks uneven, and you can, like I said, really see those brush strokes. But I want to add more interest and a little bit more texture, so I'm going to layer a little bit of this flower paper on the bottom as well. Now on this first one that I use, I don't really like how that flower print paper looks like a heel sticking up out of the pink strip. So you'll see here, I'm just gonna rip off a second strip, and this one works a little better. So I'm gonna play with these for a little bit and get the placement just right, and then I will get that taped down to my layout. Now my original plan was to take my sewing machine and just stitch all along the bottom here, but I actually don't end up doing that. But that's why I don't glue down or tape down that green strip super good, because I plan on sewing it. But you'll see later how I'll go through and get it down a little better. So now I have all these little bits and pieces, and my idea is that I wanted to take a bunch of different elements and kind of scatter them in a couple little groupings on my layout. So I feel that I have that sequence, and to me sequence is super girly and maybe even fancy. And then you have the cork hearts, which something about the cork seems less fancy than the sparkly sequence. And then you kind of have the buttons that are I feel that they're kind of in between those two things as far as, I don't know. And I don't even know if I'm explaining that very good, but I liked the mixture of a bunch of different textures that have a bunch of different feels, from what I would consider to be really fancy to then the other end of that spectrum. So I wanted it to feel just this hodgepodge of different elements here. And I'm fiddling around with these quite a bit. I want them to look really random, but I don't feel that I do random very good. I usually end up playing with them quite a bit until I just decide that I'm tired of playing with them, and then they're good to go. And so that's really what I did. And in the end, I think it looks okay, but I was really trying to go for just more of a random feel. So as you can see, those hearts were just self-adhesive. They had adhesive on the back, so I just had to stick those down. And then for the sequence, I'm using this Tombow liquid adhesive to glue those down. And I got a little bit of that glue on my fingers, so after that, everything started sticking to my fingers. But luckily, I didn't have too many of those sequins, so it really didn't take very long to glue all of those down. So after I get this sequence glued down, I'm just trying to think of what options I have to get the buttons adhered to the layout, and I decide I want to go ahead and sew them. So I pull out some embroidery floss. I bring over a couple different, well, 4 different colors, but I decide to use this lighter pink, and it's just a little bit lighter than the buttons themselves, and I thought that that would look cute. And I'm just taking my tape runner and putting a little bit of tape on the back of these buttons just so they'll stay in place until I can get them sewed on my layout. Now I'm just using that foam pad and that Tim Holtz paper piercer just to poke the holes through the buttons. That makes it obviously much easier to sew the buttons on. And then I'm gonna go ahead and thread my needle. Now I didn't want my thread to be too thick or too thin, so there's 6 little strands of thread that make up that one thick piece, and I decided to separate 2 of them out and then just use 4 of the strands. I guess at the time I was making this layout, that seemed like the magic number, the right amount of thickness, and so that's what I decided to do. A lot of the times I'll usually just use the whole strand of thread if I want more of a chunky look, or I'll split it in half and only use 3 of them, but today that magic number was 4 strands, so that's what I went with. And then as you can see, as I'm sewing these buttons down, I am just taking some washi tape and securing my ends down. And you'll see here on the second piece of washi tape, I put it over all of the holes and everything, just to make sure that that button stays nice and secure on my layout. And then I'm just going to go through and sew on the other 2 buttons and get those onto the layout. So after I get these buttons sewed down, this is when I realized that now that I have like the buttons and the sequins and those cork cards, it's going to be kind of hard to sew that line along the bottom. So I decided to go ahead and just make sure that that green strip is adhered to my layout. And I still though decide to go ahead and sew down that word, the word that says love. I still took that over to the sewing machine and stitched a couple lines through that. And I think that I do a close-up shot of that to show you. But I'm just cutting off my strings from that, and then again, using my washi tape to secure the ends so that that stitching stays in place. Then here is that close-up I was talking about. So now the only thing left to really do is to get my journaling down on my layout, and I'm using my ruler to draw some lines so that I can journal on. A lot of the scrapbook pages that I do, I really a lot of the time focus on the story or focus on a specific memory that I want to remember. But I definitely like to make pages just because they're pretty, or just because I like the photos, or just because I want to play with the product. Those layouts definitely happen and are in my scrapbooks as well. And this is one of those layouts. So the only reason I'm scrapbooking these photos is because they're some of my favorites and I just really, really like them, and I wanted to make sure that they were in her album. And so that is really what my journaling says. I just wrote down that I love these photos of you. Everything about them is cute, especially that sweet face of yours. How did I get so darn lucky? And these are pretty old photos. They're from back in 2013, but I do remember that time as being a fun time to take pictures of London because she was just so happy all the time and so darn cute. She was kind of growing into a toddler instead of being a baby, and that was a really fun transition to see. So, so I just get the date on here real quick and then I call it good. So I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you all back very, very soon. All right, bye-bye.